We call it people technology.
インテル入ってる。
Well, that's a proper hammering by the Chennai Super Kings. They look like a team in red-hot form now. 5 wins on the trot. They also resigned the Sunrisers Hyderabad to their 5th defeat this season. So completely contrasting fortunes for both teams. We look back at that game on Maruti Suzuki Presents, ESPN Cricket Info T20 Time Out, powered by Intel, in the company of Dale Steyn and Dan Vettori. Before we discuss the cricket, of course, for our viewers in India, these are testing times. So make sure that in public you are masking up, follow social distancing and self-sanitizing protocols. And if you are eligible, please do take your vaccine as soon as possible. Right. Let's look back at the cricket. And we wondered what sort of score 171 is, Dan, at half-time. And you said you weren't sure. It's almost a nothing sort of score. And we'd probably get a better idea once Chennai bat. My God, they made it look easy. 18.5 overs. They've gunned down that target.
Yeah, I mean, the way Kane Williamson batted was the real wicket. I think that's what we could have surmised after that Sunrise innings, and then the opening partnership between Gaikwad and Faf du Plessis was just set the game up. And I think if you step back and say those 3 batsmen just all played magnificent cricket shots. There was no slogging. There was no. Didn't look hard at all. It was just beautiful batting, and Sunrise had no real answers to that opening partnership.
Yeah, as good as the batting was, or as good as the surface looked, Dale, it does look like the Sunrisers have a bit of a problem here. In the absence of Bhuvneshwar Kumar, it looks like Rashid Khan's the only real bowling threat. Without that, is this bowling looking a little, lacking a little bit of teeth?
Just lost a little bit of firepower there with the ball tonight. Really relying on Rashid to kind of do the damage. And Rashid's a great bowler. He's always going to be a handful, but he's now not being backed up with the ball now. They do need somebody that is like extreme pace potentially or extreme skill in bhuvi. And unfortunately, they don't have either when they're out there. I mean, Khalil Ahmed has done nicely, and he's done steadily, but Rashid is the big weapon for them. And if there's nobody to back him up, like there wasn't anybody tonight, it looked a really easy walk in the park basically for CSK tonight. And the wicket was actually good, like Dan said. The way that Kane batted on it and the way that Faf and Gaikwad batted on it, that was the true reflection of the wicket. Up until about the 18th over, Warner and Pandey, they didn't give us a true reflection of how that wicket would have actually was actually playing.
Now, why is that? Is that because of what Dhoni said at the toss, that this looks a bit tacky and maybe it'll get better as the game goes on? Was it Chennai bowling, or was it just Sunrisers not making the most of it, Dan?
I think we've got to back Dhoni's assessment of the wicket, don't we? I think this is what we've learned from all of this, that we should back him no matter what. But look, I think Sam Curran bowled really well up front. I think he got the important wicket of Bairstow, and because of the way that Sunrisers are set up, when they lose one of those opening batsmen, then they can at times just look a little bit tentative. And then we spoke about how Warner just kept hitting fielders, and those 2 things combined, along with some very good CSK bowling, which is what we've expected so far this season. And they manipulated their bowlers really well. I thought they didn't use a compliment from the likes of Deepak Chahar, and so they just understood the surface, and I think matched up really well against Sunrisers. So I think it was just another cerebral effort from CSK, and they just look unstoppable at the moment.
Yeah, if you are in the Sunrisers dugout at the moment, Dale, what are you concerned about? It looks like problems on all fronts. It looks like the batting's not coming together, and you've got an issue with the bowling in the absence of Bhuvneshwar Kumar.
Yeah, they've already made 21 changes. By the next game, you could be 23, 24 changes. They're scratching their heads right now because they can't. But they're kind of chasing it up a little bit, like they're not doing too well with the bat. And now tonight wasn't too great with the ball. Maybe they just got to stick with the ball, stick with the guys that they've got right now, and then they have to have a word with their batters. The way that Warner went about it, maybe had he found a couple more gaps tonight, he may have gotten a little bit more flow and got going a little bit more. But 20 runs would have still been well short tonight. You think maybe 4 or 5 more boundaries could have changed changed the look of the game, 190, but still they would have fallen short because they just didn't have the firepower with the ball tonight. All around, just a really bad game and an unfortunate time for Sunrisers right now because they haven't been winning, and it leaves them with a lot more questions. It leaves that whole management staff that they've got, and we spoke about earlier, all of them kind of scratching their heads right now, thinking, what do we do? It's big question marks for them right now.
And this is as close to their strongest 11 as they come, Dan. Maybe Bhuvneshwar Kumar is the only one who probably make it. But it looks like a team that's still heavily reliant on David Warner to almost lift them personally with a big performance.
Yeah, I don't think you solve any of their issues with selection. I think it is down to that 11 that they've picked so far. In this game, obviously Bhuvneshwar comes in when he's fit, but it is about the performance from those top guys. And sometimes, I mean, it doesn't happen all the time. Teams talk about it around, now we've got freedom to play because we have to win every game. But that may be the release that they do need, particularly around Warner. I mean, if Warner, when Sunrise are at their best, it's been due to Warner, and then everyone else compliments what he does. It's due to Rashid Khan and the bowling attack, and then everyone else compliments him from there. So maybe this is a chance for him just to go out there and play and see what happens. But they're in a predicament now after these performances.
And as far as CSK go, Dan, this is now more like the CSK of the IPL, known for so many years. Last season almost seems like an aberration. Now they're sending a bit of a message to the rest of the league. This looks like a team that's going to be hard to stop suddenly. Well,
like you keep telling me, I took last year off, and it looks like CSK did the same thing. So look, they look amazing. I think we have talked about Moeen Ali a lot, but I think he adds so much in terms of the balance that they have. They've got Jadeja back. They're giving him a lot more responsibility with the bat, him coming in ahead of Suresh Raina, and they're not actually requiring too much from Suresh Raina and Dhoni with the bat so far. So they still have a lot to offer from some of their experienced players, but that bowling attack covers every base. And like I said earlier on, I think Sam Curran is a huge part of it as well. He bowls at the top and he bowls at the death. And once again, he's another guy we haven't seen a lot with the bat. So we say this is a team that's firing all cylinders, but they've got a lot of guys who can still contribute to their performances.
Yeah, it looks like, Dale, after that first defeat that they had against Delhi Capitals, when the Capitals chased 180 odd easily at the 1K day, it's just been so easy for them.
Yeah, everyone's just kind of contributing, you know. We did speak about where Jadeja should be batting and where Dhoni should be batting and Curran should be batting ahead, but you know, there's obviously faith in that lineup, and Dhoni had a lot of faith in Jadeja. We saw it the previous game where he went out there and he batted so beautifully, bowled beautifully. He's caught everything, and then Faf and Gaikwad are scoring runs up the top of the order. Raina scored runs in the first game. He hasn't really looked great since then. He's done his part and everything like that. But at the end of the day, everyone is just kind of contributing. Moeen Ali's been fantastic. Sam Curran's been great. Well, this team has just looked completely different to last year. Very happy unit and winning games. And when you are winning games, you are a happy unit. And I guess that's when you're playing your best cricket. And when you look at the other side of the coin, when you look at SRH and they haven't won any games, you see Warner, he doesn't quite look the same player on the field. You normally see that real excitement in him, almost Virat Kohli-like when he's in your face of the opposition and everything. We haven't seen that yet, and that's just because they've been losing games. And it's now kind of starting to drift into his batting. You see he's finding fielders, he's getting frustrated, and he's just not getting away right now. So he needs something to kind of spark in his game, and once that happens, you'll probably see SRH will start to go on the upward curve. They were one win away from gaining some mileage in the table tonight, and they'll be disappointed that they didn't put in a good enough effort tonight to potentially do that for themselves.
You speak of the faith of CSK and the faith of Dhoni. Ruturaj Gaikwad, we spent a large part of those first 3 or 4 games wondering whether he makes this team any stronger, and it's classic Dhoni, isn't it, Dan? You just back a player and seems to be coming off.
Yeah, that's their MO, and they keep pulling it off. And I think for a young player coming into a team, there can't be any better backing than a guy like Dhoni and a coach like Stephen Fleming, knowing that they're going to back you, they're going to keep giving you opportunities. And I think it was a couple of years ago, Shane Watson, I think he missed out 12 times and then came good in the last couple of games and in the playoffs. So I think they have that mentality about them. Once they recognise class and skill, then they're not going to drop anyone. They'll make changes for conditions and matchups, but they're not going to drop someone who's out of form. They're going to back him to come back into it, and that's a real rare place to be as a franchise, and it must be wonderful being a young batsman having that backing.
Okay, you two have played a lot of cricket at the Firozshah Kotla, now rechristened as the Arun Jaitley Stadium, but that pitch at Delhi seems to have changed as well. Is that the best you've seen it play for a batsman, Dale?
I mean, I've seen big scores there in Delhi before.
Yeah.
It's always been a bit of a low deck. I quite enjoyed bowling in Delhi. You know, always the type of bowler who I am. I'm always trying to target the stumps. My bouncer never really got up, which was great. Kind of skidded on and everything like that. But it did play beautifully tonight. The second innings, and especially the way that Kane went out there and batted, you could just see that. I mean, we've heard it now. Kane, it looked like those guys were batting on a completely different wicket to what Warner and Pandey were batting on. And they batted for almost 17 overs, you know, giving us an idea of what this wicket was like, potentially tacky and everything like that. But then when Kane and Faf and Gaikwad were out there, it really just looked like it was a superb batting wicket. Would have been interesting to see if CSK had batted first, what total they would have put on, because they're in a good run of form with the bat. Everyone looks confident, and whether they would have probably got up to that 200 mark, which potentially could have happened tonight.
It just occurred to me that we've got the early game in Delhi tomorrow, and we've also got you, the two of you, for that early game in Delhi tomorrow. So I shouldn't extend the torture to Dan Vettori at 5:40 in the morning in Auckland. Let's call it a night. Thank you very much. On Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Time Out, powered by Intel. I will see Dale Steyn and Dan Vettori for pre-match analysis for the Mumbai-Rajasthan game in Delhi tomorrow, the afternoon game, double headers. So make sure you tune in accordingly. It is a weekday, but we have a lot of double headers on weekdays in this year's IPL. And make sure you catch all the Vivo IPL highlights and live action on Disney Plus Hotstar. And of course, as we leave you, don't forget that these are testing times. And once again, we remind our viewers, especially those in India, that mask up in public, follow social distancing and self-sanitizing protocols. And if you are eligible, please do take your vaccine as soon as possible. We'll see you again tomorrow. Good night.
We call it people technology.
インテル入ってる